I am currently standing on the highway of Night City, which services nearly 7 million people from district to district, and deep within its asphalt contains levels of details most players completely overlook. And we're starting with one I genuinely could not find explained anywhere online. These weird colored interchanges. There's no Reddit posts, no wiki articles, and no YouTube videos on these that I could find, so buckle up while I drive to one. Throughout Night City's highways, there are specific interchange zones where the road surface suddenly changes color, with lanes becoming either red, blue, or orange. Now every player has likely driven on these guys dozens of times, but have you ever wondered why they're colored the way they are? Probably not, as you're likely just speeding through oncoming traffic to a mission where you stare at Pan Am's caboose. Now if you're like me, you might have assumed that these colors are based on a requirement in current-day California, except according to California's Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is over 1,400 pages long, there are no requirements for highway interchanges to be color-coded. So my assumption that California's highways are real-life versions of Rainbow Road was incorrect. In fact, after going through multiple state regulations, it seems nowhere in the US has a color-coded road requirement like this. So did CD Projekt just accidentally paint part of the highway and hope that nobody would question it? Not exactly. America may not have color-coded roads, but Night City isn't just American. Much like the famous chess YouTuber Hikaru Nakamura, Night City is only half American. The other half is Japanese. And in Japan, color-coded pavement is a real thing. In the land of the rising sun, some lanes feature bright colors such as red or blue to visually inform drivers of upcoming turns, bike lanes, and crosswalks, basically helping pedestrians avoid being isekai'd by Truck-kun. So maybe CD Projekt was just inspired by the roads of Nihon, but how could I be sure just by looking at Google Images? No, that wasn't good enough for me, so I flew out all the way to Japan to see its highway system for myself. And after spending days driving along, I'm just kidding, I drove around on Google Maps. While exploring Tokyo digitally, I found many examples of colors being used in lanes that mirror usage in Night City. However, I was only able to find red colored lanes marking sharp turns or exits on the highway, even though Night City contains blue and orange lanes as well. Now, I do know that blue lanes are a thing, since, hang on, editor, that's Azure Lane, not blue lanes, and that's a Chinese game anyways. Cut! While I can confirm that blue lanes are a thing in Japan thanks to Google Images, I couldn't validate their use on highways, and I found no usage of orange lanes whatsoever. Unless you count Orange Street in Osaka, cause yeah, that's orange, but I don't think a gimmick street counts. So while the use of colors is clearly inspired by Japanese roadways, CD Projekt I guess just wanted to spice it up with more variety since it is the far future of 2077. Now real quick, another realistic aspect of Cyberpunk are the cyber threats that people face. While digitally traveling in Japan, I had to protect myself from current-day netrunners with today's video partner, NordVPN. In the real world, netrunners aren't usually cute anime girls hacking into your neural link. Instead, they're creeps that are trying to bait you with phishing attacks and scams, which involve fake emails or websites designed to trick you into handing over your own credentials or installing malware. Fortunately, NordVPN's browsing protection identifies and blocks malicious websites and scams, not to mention its ability to block those intrusive trackers that are trying to follow your digital footprint across the web. And going to nordvpn.com/ravegamehub, you can exclusively get an extra 4 months with a 2-year plan. I use NordVPN when script writing in public, as it gives me peace of mind knowing that my info is actually secured on those open networks. Again, that's nordvpn.com/ravegamehub for 4 bonus months when purchasing a 2-year plan, which is the best deal that they have on offer right now. And there's no risk because Nord offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you don't like it, you can get your money back in the first 30 days of your purchase. Protect yourself and your data from digital attacks and support the channel with nordvpn.com/ravegamehub. And now we can leave Japan. Now, dear viewer, you might be thinking, wow, how did you think to check if Japanese roads were similar? Is it because your brain is just so big? Nope, I just happened to be watching the trailer for Ananta and noticed that there were red lanes all over the place in it. And since the city is inspired by Japan, it led me to check out their real-world infrastructure. And yes, I know the game is made in China, but it is a Japanese-style city. I checked. Originally, I theorized that these lanes were graffiti from the 6th Street Gang. I had a whole script done and everything, but I had to scrap it and 4 other drafts. These highways are just so interesting that I kept finding new information that kept changing my ideas. Now, as far as I can tell, in Japan, red lanes mark stopping points or tight turns, while blue lanes make bike lanes easier to see. However, in Night City, I can't find a consistent pattern. Blue seems to mark lanes that continue on the highway at interchanges, but so does orange at times. Red appears to indicate turns or moments to slow down, but so does orange and blue at different points. And sometimes all three colors appear together, and I can't make heads or tails of it since there's no written info in-game on what they mean, except at the border checkpoint. But I doubt they stand for nothing to declare, custom declaration, and pre-check. In all likelihood, CD Projekt just reused the color scheme here as a nice aesthetic detail. And that's not the only place they reused assets, because oh boy, the highway reveals a ton about the game's development.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
Let's get into the nitty-gritty with the city center and look at this section of highway closely. Do you notice anything weird about it? You should, because this right here put the whole highway system in a new light. It's like I gained enough insight in Bloodborne, and now I can't look at the highway like I used to. So type in the comments what you think is weird about it, because I'm about to reveal that secret after I explain the realism. First, let's start with the good. This place contains side barriers on an elevated highway to protect cars from driving off the side and squishing unsuspecting chooms. And that's all the good. Yeah, this place is a civil engineer's worst nightmare. First, there's nothing separating the opposing lanes of traffic. Depending on the highway location, you need to have a median, a barrier, or at the very least, solid yellow lines. And given that Night City is an urban environment, it should have a barrier at least 10 feet wide. But here, there is nothing, which means nothing is preventing drivers from drifting off directly into oncoming traffic. Oh, sorry about that, buddy. I hope you got platinum coverage, cause it gets worse. Next up, highways need something called shoulders, which are sections on the edges where you can pull over for a police officer, a breakdown mechanically or mentally, or to pull over in case you need to go pee in the woods. A shoulder size varies, but for Night City, they should at least be 4 feet wide. Instead, they have nothing. How am I supposed to pull over for Officer Dobbs without a shoulder? Next, lanes here appear out of nowhere. One lane suddenly starts in a median while another one drives directly into the same median with no warning. Oh, and another lane just drives directly into a wall. Hope you're not boxed into this lane, because if so, you're not missing an exit, you're meeting God. Lanes starting and stopping need to be communicated with signs and arrows, informing drivers to merge. But here, there is none of that. Now, having covered its safety issues, let's look at it from above again. Doesn't this road look oddly symmetrical, with the weird lanes starting at the same point and even the wear and tear mirroring each other perfectly? Well, if you wrote in the comments that it looked like the road texture was copied and flipped here, well then congratulations, you were right. Have a gold star.
You're all breathtaking.
While all of the highway is mostly symmetrical, this spot is special because its unique issues stem from the fact that the texture was not only mirrored, but it didn't fit here to begin with. The original texture probably looks something more like this, which is already misaligned with the road's 3D model. But when flipped, it makes this weird Y-shaped lane with opposing lanes of traffic meeting. This same odd method of mirroring textures can actually be found throughout the city's center. These textures were likely applied very late in development because the NPC drivers were not even programmed to follow the traffic lines. As you can see, the car's pathing is actually following a path more similar to how the lanes on the roads should have looked. And this sort of issue isn't exclusive to this spot. It's actually all over the highway, with sections where CD Projekt used ill-fitting textures to complete it. And when textures meet, they frequently had a hard time lining them up. And that issue is so common that the devs frequently tried to hide that mistake with covering textures where two road models meet, but they didn't catch all of the mistakes. Now, I'm not pointing these out to dunk on CD Projekt, because I think that there's an interesting reason that these issues even exist. And to understand, let's first compare this game to one like GTA 5. In Los Santos, the roads are almost perfectly logical because that game is a satire on a functioning current-day American city. It's called Grand Theft Auto for a reason, and that's because the streets are the star of the show. Too many weird road oddities would eventually just shatter the immersion, like when a hacker was messing with me when I was trying to record. And now, let's contrast that with Cyberpunk 2077. Here, the highways are just a means to an end. While they're important for getting around, their level of realistic detail isn't a vital core of the experience. This allowed developers to be a bit more lax, especially given how high pressure the development cycle was for this game. Every hour saved on a highway merger was another hour that they could spend on a more crucial aspect of the game. Now, this might surprise you considering the videos that I make, but I actually think that fun is more important than realism if you have to prioritize one. It's just really cool when both can exist, which is why I make the videos that I make. It's like Gabe Newell said.
It feels like the wall is ignoring me. Shoot it.
Ooh, whoops, hang on, that's not the quote.
And I've never thought to myself that realism is fun. I go play games to have fun.
While I don't agree that realism can't be fun, I do agree that games are about fun above all else. It's like Reggie said.
If it's not fun, why bother?
Okay, that's the last quote, I promise. CD Projekt made the right call, prioritizing the rest of the game over the highway textures. And during development, they probably had to make a lot of tough calls, like, why develop a section of highway from scratch when we can just flip some existing assets? Sure, some lanes are gonna drive into barriers, but players aren't gonna be following the rules of the road anyways, and only a loser with no life that probably smells would ever take the time to notice this. And even if they made a video about this, nobody's gonna watch, like, subscribe, comment, or hype the video anyway, so who cares?
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Okay, let's stop looking at the highway under a microscope for a bit and start looking at the bigger picture, because on a macro scale, Night City's highway system actually makes a shocking amount of sense. If you pull up the in-game map, the highway system doesn't look especially impressive at first, but not only is it realistic, it tells the story of Night City's history and follows decades of lore that CD Projekt made sure to adhere to, that most players won't even know about. To understand this, let me explain how a city's roads need to work. Roads are a lot like the circulatory system in the human body, and in us humans, the thicker veins and arteries travel outside of the major organs, while the smaller arterioles and venules travel closer to the flesh until they become the even smaller capillaries that pass by every cell. Now for a city, the highways are the larger veins, the smallest roads are the capillaries going to every building, and in between we have the aptly named arterial roads. See, this comparison wasn't just something I made up, it's baked into the road design like a sick love child of biology and civil engineering. And me! Overall, highways should be on the outside of a city for the most part, with arterial roads flowing into them and then smaller roads connecting individual buildings. And with that in mind, why would I say that the road system of Night City is realistic when the highway is clearly traveling through the center of town at multiple points? That's because Night City wasn't always this big. It's been expanding outward for decades, and the city probably looked a lot smaller originally, like this perhaps. And then over time, Watson Industry expanded outward, Haywood grew further east, and from lore we know that Westbrook redeveloped into a high-class district after a literal nuke exploded in the year 2023.
You look like a cut of fuckable meat, are you?
So after that disaster, North Oak was established on the other side of the highway, and Pacifica expanded south during the redevelopment push of the 2050s, creating the footprint that we see in-game today. But why speculate when I can prove it's true with the power of board games? Excuse me, miss, please don't step in my shot. Oh, you asked for it. As I'm sure you know, the Cyberpunk series didn't start with the video game that was first teased 12 years ago. Oh my god. It actually started as a tabletop RPG with editions set in 2013, 2020, 2030, and 2045, with each version including its own map of Night City for reference. So let's look at 2020 and 2045 to prove my point. Night City in 2020 looked like this, and then 25 years later it looks similar but clearly larger. And would you look at that expansion, not a hint of the current North Oak or the southern portion of Pacifica. Now while the 2045 map has some structural differences to the city that we see in game, we can chalk that up to CD Projekt Red just expanding the scale because they weren't limited by 2 dimensions like a tabletop RPG. So my headcanon is that only part of the highway was even depicted in the TTRPG to avoid clutter, and you can't argue with headcanons, because if you do, I will cry. Considering all that, the highway system used in-game is a wonderful detail for the city and its history. Okay, let's zoom back in and drive over to the single weirdest lane in the game, located near Arasaka Tower. This lane right here is used privately by Arasaka Security, giving them direct access to the front of Arasaka Tower via the highway. But this breaks all kinds of rules. The Megacorps may be controlling the city, but I will not let traffic violations stand. First, a lane should never suddenly end on a highway where people are going at least 60 miles per hour, although I will give them credit for including hazard colors and merge arrows to inform drivers to merge out of the lane. But these warnings are posted way too late. Merge warnings need to be posted at least 1,000 feet in advance, but preferably in a high traffic area like Night City, it should be warning you about this at least a half a mile in advance. I mean, there's definitely not enough time for drivers to merge away from it since the NPCs are just driving right down it. Fortunately, it's only blocked off by a hologram and not a brick wall. The next issue is the fact that the lane turns into a narrow road at a 90-degree turn. You do not let traffic merge out of high-speed traffic at a 90-degree turn, because even if you don't crash, you run the risk of Austin Powersing it. Oh, and the lane eventually exits back onto the highway at a 90-degree turn again. Yeah, that's a safety hazard. If it's for security, make the road at least curve like a merge lane is supposed to be. Taken individually, all of these weird issues are unrealistic and dangerous, but taken together, they reaffirm that this likely stemmed from the crunch that CD Projekt was facing during development, leading to a lot of reused road assets that are just slightly tweaked to fit. Now, I don't know for sure what led to CD Projekt connecting the entrance to Arasaka Tower to the highway in this way, but there are 2 things that make me think that this wasn't originally planned, but instead was a quicker fix. First, as mentioned, this sudden and sharp connection is odd and doesn't get used anywhere else. And second, the developers didn't change the AI pathing to be able to actually avoid this lane. That then led the developers to not be able to actually block it off, so instead they used a holographic wall to allow NPCs to pass right through without getting stuck. And since the NPC path is set set to use this lane, this portion of the highway was likely nearly completed before its connection to the Arasaka Tower was installed, or at the very least the AI pathing was at least completed, with the idea that they would be using this lane until something changed. Perhaps connecting the tower more conventionally was impossible with all the other road assets and buildings being placed. And since it would take far too much time to redesign the city center to correct this, they made the connection that we have in-game instead to save time as development was already dragging on. But that's only one possible explanation for this setup. So while this Arasaka lane is odd and extremely unsafe, it presents another nice window into the development of this game. Oh, and if my theory about the development crunch leading to these road oddities isn't compelling enough, then maybe the Watson-Westbrook interchange will change your mind. This right here was probably a nightmare to design, while simultaneously being relatively unimportant to the player experience beyond just getting them from point A to point B. And due to this, it seems that during development, CD Projekt didn't pay too close attention to it, as it is littered with incorrect road textures. You see, this interchange contains many two-laned one-way roads where two lanes direct traffic in the same direction while separated by a double yellow line, which isn't correct. For those who don't know, here in the US, road lines come in two colors, white and yellow. White separates lanes flowing in the same direction, while yellow separates lanes going in the opposite directions. So placing double yellow lines to separate lanes going in the same direction is completely wrong. And before anyone says that this may be another Japanese inspiration, I do know that Japan will sometimes separate lanes going in the same direction with a yellow line. But according to their traffic guidelines, they only use a single yellow line in those cases, not a double line. And that's only at sharp turns on a highway or at stop intersections, so it doesn't really apply here. Yeah, that's right, I read through Japanese traffic documents for this video as well. So while it would be cool to say that CD Projekt based this on a Japanese design, it's sadly not true. Now, CD Projekt did understand the distinction between yellow and white lines, as they're used correctly throughout the city and even at other portions of the interchange. So the use of this road texture seems to have been an oversight during its development and not a fundamental misunderstanding of the US road system. But we can cut them some slack as they're, European. I was curious, so I decided to torture myself with even more reading and checked how CD Projekt's home country of Poland does roads, and it turns out that they only use white lines on their roads, so the use of yellow traffic lines is completely foreign to them. Okay, let's fly back to Night City now. While CD Projekt gets the lane colors right in many places, combine the fact that it's not their usual road structure with the development crunch, and you can see how some incorrect road textures were placed without noticing. And with how prominent this exact mistake is at this interchange, it makes me think that it was finished relatively quick with very little review. You can even see where the use of multiple different road textures meet and overlap, further proving that they weren't originally designed for this location. It seems that they just didn't have time to design textures for all the unique connections, so sometimes they just used whatever fit best and hoped that nobody would notice. But I did. Now we're not done with this interchange just yet, because I haven't even mentioned the road closure nearby that gives players zero heads up or detour routes. I know that this opens up in Act 2, but I'm a stickler for the rules, so the NCPD needs to provide advanced warning of the closure and detour routes. And no, the pop-up warning does not count, and the teleportation is not a replacement for a detour, especially with how often it traps me. Oh my god, I've been stuck here for hours while recording, just let me go, please! I mean, look at these poor NPC drivers, they're just forced to stop and stare into the abyss until I move far enough away to grant them the sweet embrace of despawning. While this interchange is a nightmare up close, it's also a nightmare from afar, but a realistic one. Because in civil engineering, realistic does not mean optimal. You don't need a degree to notice that this web of concrete is unnecessarily complex. Now to show you how ridiculous this setup is, here's a drawing of what I think would be more optimal. And the closest I have to experience in civil engineering is SimCity. Nope, not that one, the good one. There we go. So if it's this easy for me to come up with something simpler, then why is the one in-game so messy? Because that's how real cities work. This mess of concrete is all too real here in the States. And maybe in Europe, I don't know, that's where France is, so I try to stay away from it. In the real world, highway systems aren't designed all at once. Due to poor planning, budget cuts, or city expansions, highways often only get patchwork improvements over time. So the system may get better and better with time, but it's never fully optimized. Hey, just like Cyberpunk 2077. Oh, come on! This isn't even a joke, the game crashed over 50 times when trying to get footage. Thanks to the complex nature of these odd highway connections, they actually mirror real-world design. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if CD Projekt's design team modeled them off of real connections that they saw while researching the US road system, as it's quite common for developers to travel for reference material, and they captured the patchwork budget constraint vibes perfectly. So in a weird way, good job CD Projekt, I give you 5 stars. Oh come on, this is a different game! At this point, we've covered the big ideas, so let's rapid fire some of the smaller details that I found while driving all across the highway with a magnifying magnifying glass. Located here near the city center roundabout are some interesting lanes that quickly start and end, marked off with yellow diagonal lines that seem to catch the NPC drivers by surprise, since they'll frequently come to a full stop as their AI works out the proper pathing. This looks like a quick patch job to fit a 6-lane road into a 4-lane road, and they did it so fast that they placed the Mario Kart light arrows on the opposite sides of the roads that they're supposed to be, here and here, since as you can see the lights are pointing in the opposite direction that traffic is going. You can also see that the road texture is not lining up correctly, with the yellow diagonal lines not being placed perfectly and an additional lane in the texture being hidden by the median. Additionally, one ramp has a white dashed line to separate it from a super thin lane, while the other ramp has a solid yellow line for some reason. All of these oddities make this section of the road really fascinating to me. Like, what constraints were they under that made them build it like this? Especially since the exact same merge area model is used nearby, but it doesn't use the yellow hazard lines, the features line up better, and both the enter and exit ramps have a yellow line. So why does this one get special treatment to look all weird when they nailed the other one? If any CD Projekt Red devs are seeing this, I'd love to interview you. I need to know the backstory behind this merge. Now nearby, located here, we can see another example of mirroring textures leading to some odd lane creation. The devs placed a yellow median to smooth it over, but you can still see that the cars do not follow the lanes, but instead follow pathing that doesn't line up with the texture itself. Next, let's talk arrows, because Night City loves traffic arrows. Many are placed at highway interchanges, which is great because highways are required to have them. However, there is an issue with how they're used. IRL arrows communicate where lanes will lead, with a straight arrow meaning that you can continue on a highway, a curved arrow is signaling that you can exit a highway, double arrows mean that you can do either, and an angled arrow means that a lane is about to end and you need to merge. But in Night City, they're used all wrong. At times, double arrows are used in lanes that can't exit, merge arrows are used in lanes that continue on the highway, and straight arrows are used for exits. It's all wrong. On top of that, in real life, exit lanes need to be separated from through lanes with solid white lines. But in Night City, they're nowhere to be found. And yes, I know some people in real life will drive over this line even though they're not supposed to, but the line still needs to exist. Night City better spring for the funds to repaint these lines or else I'm gonna report them. I don't know to who, but I'm gonna do it. Next on the list near Pacifica, we actually have the best designed portion of the highway in my opinion. It has entering and exit lanes slowly merging with visibility for drivers to adjust speeds, and all of the lanes fit very nicely together. Well done, CD Projekt. The only problem with this section are the lanes that are marked off with yellow diagonal lines, which means you should not drive on them. However, the NPCs frequently do. CD Projekt probably didn't have time to make a new interchange model, so they just used this instead. But since each half of it had an extra lane that wasn't needed, they just marked it off with hazard lines even though the AI was programmed to cross it to exit the highway. If this was real life, they either need to redraw the lane lines or they need to block off this lane with the barrier to prevent people from crossing. Now nearby at another interchange, we can see an exit lane has ARR placed on the road, which stands for Arroyo, letting drivers know that this lane is headed that direction. And giving drivers more info on where lanes lead is a great touch. However, calling out exits with letters on the road isn't a common thing in the US, but it's an interesting detail nonetheless, so I'm gonna allow it. And the last rapid fire is located here at this off-ramp. It seems that the dev team just didn't have enough time to add lanes to this road texture, but they left great detail with the road reflectors on the highway as they are required in case of power outages at night. Which makes it weird that reflectors are not found on most of the highway, but hey, at least they sprung for the budget to put them here. Hang on a second, is that car just a PNG? Photo mode does some weird stuff. Honestly, I could have this video go on for like an hour pointing out oddities in the road setup in Cyberpunk, but this video is taken long enough as it is, so I'm challenging you, the viewer, to try to find some for yourself, because there are so many that I had to cut. And originally, this video was on the entire road system of Night City, but I limited it to just the highway because there was just so much to go over. So if you want like a part 2 to this video on just the non-highway roads, let me know. At the time of this footage, according to the poll that I've held, the next video is going to be on how 9/11 affected all of GTA post GTA 2. And it's going to be way more than the normal fun facts that you know about GTA 3, like how the plane pathings were changed. So look forward to that. Anyways, remember to like, subscribe, and comment any other video ideas that you'd like me to make, and maybe even check out some of the other videos that I've made. But if not, no worries. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and stay awesome, y'all.